In this lesson, we will explore how generative AI model works and how one can implement them. And let's begin understanding what is generative AI. You have already seen this spectrum of AI in the earlier lesson. Here, generative AI is a creative artist within the spectrum. It generates new content, whether text or images, based on the patterns it has learned from the past wealth of data. Tools like ChatGPT, DALL-E are some of the prime examples of this technology in action. So let's explore this further. First, let's compare generative AI models or foundational models with traditional machine learning models. If you look into the training process of traditional machine learning, it starts with a clear set of data and labels. In this traditional framework, the emphasis is on supervised learning, in which the model relies heavily on the labeled dataset to learn. Of course, data preparation is the key, which involves cleaning and structuring the data to ensure it is in the right format for the algorithms to learn. Then the ML models are trained to learn the relationship between this data and its labels, with the output being prediction or classification that exactly matches the given labels. Let me explain this with an example. For instance, in spam detection system, emails are labeled as spam and not spam, and then the model learns to classify based on these predefined categories. So whereas a generative AI takes a different approach. It often starts with an unstructured content that does not have explicit label. The foundational models also go through the data preparation phase, but instead of learning from the labels, they learn to recognize patterns within this unstructured data. These foundational models are trained to understand and generate new content. They can be used for various different tasks like creating realistic images, composing music, or writing content. But the output is not a label but new content that reflects the pattern it has learned from the vast data. So the output of these two more types of models are fundamentally different. Traditional machine learning output matches input data to known labels, as we discussed, while generative AI creates entirely new piece of content based on the patterns it has learned. The difference is also between whether traditional machine learning is meant for categorization or prediction, whereas generative AI or foundational models for creation. In practical terms, this means that traditional machine learning is excellent for use cases such as predictive maintenance, fraud detections, image classifications, etc., whereas generative AI shines in creative tasks such as designing a new product, generating a new video, or creating a new synthetic data for further research, etc. This also means that a traditional machine learning excels in classification and prediction within a structured environment, whereas generative AI opens up a new world of possibilities. Both have their places in AI ecosystem, complementing each other to drive your innovation forward. Please note, one is not a replacement to the other. Now, let's also look at what are the different types of tasks that generative AI can do. See, generative AI models are trained and adapted to perform variety of complex. So they can work on diverse dataset, including text for natural language generation, images for creating new visuals. It can be trained on speech for synthesizing voices. It can also be trained on structured data for generating patterns or sequences, etc. It can also be trained on combination of all these data sets. That flexibility is amazing. So here, generative AI learns from the data through complex deep learning architectures such as GANs, which are generative adversarial neural networks. Now, it identifies the patterns, the structures and relationships within the data sets, which is very crucial for generating accurate and coherent outputs. After training, the model also undergoes adaptation. This process is called fine-tunes. We'll learn more about this in the next video. And this fine-tune happens to customize this trained model for very specific task by adjusting its parameters and optimizing its performance based on the feedback and additional data inputs, etc. etc. So if we look at, once these foundational models are trained and adapted, generative AI models can perform on variety of tasks, such as, let's say, the question answering task, which is about providing a precise answer to you. The next could be the sentiment analysis, which is all about gauging emotions in the text, um, in the social media feeds, for example. The next one is information extraction, which is about pulling a very specific details from a larger data sets, from book. The task can also be an image captioning, which is all about describing images with relevant text. The last one is object recognition, identifying and classifying objects within images, and then executing tasks based on textual commands. So generative AI, in summary, is a transformative technology that leverages vast amount of data to create new content, and it can also automate tasks. We'll talk more about this in the next lesson.